Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Initiating Business Projects and Driving Business Outcomes During Uncertainty. We are really glad you're able to be here with us today. I have here with me today John Keough, Adam Storch, and Lisa Kavanagh. They are all executives here at MicroStrategies. So Lisa, why don't I go ahead and kick it over to you to start the conversation?
Thank you so much, Kelly. How you doing, Adam and John? How's it going today?
We're living the dream, you know that. Come on now.
I know, you're always living the dream, Adam. I wanted to start the conversation this morning, really, just the fact that organizations at this point, I think, are over that initial shock that hit everyone with respect to COVID and the pandemic. And now they're really faced with understanding the shifts to their business and their organizations and how do they respond to those shifts. And they're having to do that more quickly than they ever had before. So how are you working with organizations, and what are you seeing in your experience in working with those organizations as to how they are prioritizing what it is that they're looking at as a result of those shifts?
Well, I think the most interesting thing, if you think about it, is the unknown. When you do a project, right, and you do mitigation of risk, say, okay, let's go off and do this project, all right? And then we look at the risks that are going involved, you know, and like that. And the unknown was always a really small part of that thought process. You know, it's not like something crazy like a global pandemic could happen. You know what I'm saying? So what's interesting now is when we talk to clients and they work through the prioritization, the unknown becomes very large. In other words, it's more prevalent that, oh, maybe something else or this could happen. And what we find ourselves is really working with clients to make projects or phases of projects smaller, more quick hits. You hear the phrase, you know, quick hit more. You hear, you know, let's embark on this and then we'll go to the next, you know, the next level, because that unknown is quite possible, you know. So you end up in conversations when the prioritization happens, something with either a shorter payback, right, or something where value can be realized quicker, all of a sudden becomes a higher priority project than one that may have a much larger payback, but over a longer period of time. You know what I'm saying? So people are, if you will, as patient, you know, to say, okay, we're good in 3 years, we're going to be rocking. You know what I'm saying? Now it's more like, I'd rather get the smaller payback in the shorter time frame. And that's a lot of the conversations on my side, at least, when we talk to clients, you know.
John, did you have anything else to add on Adam's wisdom?
Easy with the wisdom word. Come on now.
Adam's wisdom, but so what I agree. The time to value is important. It always has been, but there's an increased emphasis on this. I also think I see customers that were initially well prepared and those that weren't initially well prepared. And it's interesting how quickly those that weren't well prepared have ramped up. And they ramped up, but they didn't have all the structure in place. So a lot of times they threw in tools like Team or Zoom or GoTo, whatever tool they use to focus on collaboration. And now that we're into this remote working environment for some period of time, they're figuring out how to better use those tools. And that's where they're looking for some outside help. And one other point is they're also looking at what's really core to their business, right? So the things that were less and really kind of focusing on higher priority projects that are going to help them right now, and this goes to the time to value stuff. So those are two of the key things I've seen here.
You guys brought up some great points. So, you know, with respects to John, as you said, kind of when they first, you know, had the initial shock, they had to hit those quick wins. They had to really understand how to keep that organization running. And now they're saying, okay, this is going to, you know, the way we are operating is forever kind of changed. So, you know, they're really looking, to your guys' point, to say, how do we get the most of that and prioritizing those pieces? The concept of this unknown, as you mentioned, Adam, and the shorter time to market has kind of been the unknown piece has not been as big as you stated, but the shorter time to market has kind of been a concept that's been out there for a little while that businesses have been trying to do, you know, in terms of agility and trying to do a more agile method. And I know, you know, your team in the BPCS side also very much focuses and has been adopting for many years those types of methodologies when delivering. So I guess my question to you is, given this amount of unknown that you stated, and given the increased risk, How are you applying with organizations today that concept of agility? Is it different? Is there a different approach you're taking, or has anything changed?
I don't know if I'd say it's different per se. I would say there's more focus on that, anti-fragility situation, right? Because when we talk about the idea that says when we go through a project, right, you go through a process flow and you look at the risks in that process flow. What could go wrong, right? I mean, the happy path is lovely, but what could go wrong? And testing those what could go wrongs, that's where we spend, quite frankly, more time than we used to. All right. So there's more time spent on that risk situation, on the what could go wrong, because like I said, not to overdo it, we never thought we'd be all sitting here on this conversation. You know what I'm saying? In terms of where we are now. So I would say that if you look at a pie chart and you say, okay, Adam, when you guys do your workshops and you go through your business processes and you analyze things, right? You go through that steps and you get to that, okay, here's my happy path. And now we break into where the risks are, right? Where are things going on? There is more time spent on those. How do I mitigate that risk? How do I address the fact that the unknown could happen? And of course, that's a cute thing to say, the unknown. If it's unknown, Adam, how do you know it's going to happen? It's more a matter of understanding what happens if things don't go right, So I will tell you, before we spent time on that, not as much. What's changed? More time spent on those kinds of things. People are not as much saying that could never happen. I know it sounds kind of whatever, but that's the reality. So we end up in more conversations, a good way, about risk mitigation. So I would argue that, the systems now, maybe for the wrong reasons because of the pandemic, are almost more future proof or future ready. I don't want to say they're bulletproof, but they're more future ready because more time is spent on what might happen. The other thing I would like to say is also, part of the thing with clients, and this is expected, and John and I have been doing this for longer than we both want to admit, there's always that piece when you're dealing with a client about the analysis. You hear the phrase analysis paralysis, right? I didn't invent the phrase, okay? That's another thing we find ourselves doing with clients more, because there is more concern in their head. There is more concern about, am I getting this perfect? Is this going to be exactly right? Are we mitigating every single circumstance? And part of our role is also to help people get through that. I almost call it for dating myself, we're the Fraser Crane of ECM. We got to therapeutically get them through some of this because it's understandable. There's got to be success. There's a lot more focus on ROI. There's a lot more focus on being successful, but there's that fear that I don't know everything, meaning, the users. So it boils down to saying more time spent on the unknown, working with the clients to respect the fact you still don't know everything, and that's okay. Let's know what we can know and do our best to understand what happens if something goes wrong, that risk mitigation, if you will. And it's a big deal. I mean, we all know people have, lost their jobs because of COVID, so people are more concerned about success in projects. So it's really a matter of putting your arms around, okay, what could happen, and giving them a comfort level about what's going to be in place for that risk, mitigation. Okay. I know, John, you and I have done a lot of these things. I don't know what your take.
I agree. Everything you said, absolutely experiencing it. I like to, so in addition to that, I like to think that we mitigate risk always, and we've always done that. So now it's so some of the things that I see are different is, alignment and communication is an increased emphasis on this. So and how do we, as our teams are remote, as well as our customers' teams are remote, how do we keep everyone, pulling the rope in the same direction and aligned? So increased communication, increased alignment. We had a project kickoff yesterday. We had internal prep before that, just like we normally do. We talked about the customer, about how do we stay aligned with them throughout the project lifecycle. So I think those are key things that we need to continue to focus on. And then the one other thing is is setting the expectations during the kickoff. What are the deliverables? Making sure that success is understood for everybody. I know we get that in the contract, but sometimes it's the interpretation of the contract and the communication and the real understanding with the customer about what they're trying to achieve. And the last part I say on that is, or part of it is, is things won't always go right. So how are you going to address things when they don't go right? So one of the things we talk about, and I've been talking about this for a lot of years, is what is the
Thank you for not dating both of us. Thank you.
So how do you escalate issues, and how do you identify how you do that? And it's not something where it's just a matter of course, where if 95% of the issues are resolved at the project level, that's fine, and that's kind of normal. But when you do have to escalate, you don't want to have to figure out who you're going to escalate to in advance. You have that all you want to have that all structured, so that at the moment you can move things forward in a quick fashion, mitigating the risk.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I know, we always in the communication plans during the kickoff, 100% right. I will tell you, there's definitely a lot more hyper awareness of the alignment thing. And when John talks about alignment, remember, this is everything from the people that might be touching keyboards to executives who are signing checks, and it's that alignment of expectations up and down. There's always that assumption that they know, and I've attended presentations like that, but there's definitely, on our side and with a lot of the client side, more focus on that alignment. Being remote, there's a lot less casual conversations. There's a lot less walk through the hallway, oh, by the ways, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot more structure that needs to happen to ensure that communication and assure that alignment, very important stuff. Yeah, no. Totally
so to that question, the conversations with respects to alignment are great, just making sure that we're all on the same page as far as where we are. Now, what about when we talk about delivering value more quickly and having them see the results more quickly? Are there different approaches that you're taking with customers, or maybe the same approaches you've taken in the past to show them as you're going along the value and how it's progressing and making sure it's meeting expectations?
So you get smiles from both of us because, not to use overused phrase, but we are, if you will, an agile shop in terms of, iterative development, right? And we do our 2-week sprints. And every 2 weeks, based on what's going on, we're going to show them what's going on, right? We're going to show, okay, we did this. I will tell you, there's always a focus in showing them something to give them that comfort what's going on. I would say there's a hyper focus. So in other words, whether it's a document deliverable, okay, or code or whatever, there is a much more heavier focus on seeing what's going on every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And that can take the form, again, it may be development that's going on, it may be a screen, it may be a diagram, it may be a storyboard, whatever. But there is that hyper focus on that iterative piece, because again, not forgive me for beating the dead horse, those casual conversations aren't there. So that 2-week interval, that may be it. That may be the only time that manager, that executive, that whatever gets to see, well, Adam said there was going to be a diagram, or Adam said this, you know what I'm saying? There is no casual, you know what I'm saying? So there is, because of the remote and the lack of the water cooler conversations, you know what I'm saying? There is a more hyper focus on every couple of weeks, this is what's going on. I mean, it's definitely a lot bigger deal, and for me, it's a big deal, and for John, because we're always dealing with both the users and the tech side. We're not using, we're both dealing with both sides of the equation, and making sure there's that alignment on that regard is a big deal. And you just don't have those casuals. You don't have those, you go off to use the facilities, if you will, and you happen to pass by somebody and have that quick conversation. You know what I'm saying? Now it's only the structured piece. So you really got to think about ensuring the communication, because at every week or every 2 weeks, maybe it, and that's why it's got to be more serious about that, John, I'm sorry, you know me, John. So go ahead. I won't take the whole half hour.
Progress previews, regardless of what the deliverables are, on a more frequent basis, only going to lead to more goodness. That's it. And the customer is not going to get something at the end that they're surprised by, right? And that will be the worst thing possible. So that's what we've done historically. It's just, to Adam's point, there's an increased emphasis on it, and both internally and with our customers.
And it could be, like I said, John said, let's be realistic. So I'll be big boys and girls. I'd like to believe 100% of the time it's flawless every 2 weeks, but every now and then, if there's a miscommune or whatever, at least corrective action happens much quicker. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, something's going to happen. Maybe a miss on this, or somebody didn't understand something because it went from a piece of paper diagram to a screen, and that's an evolution. So that continuous every 2 week thing is a big deal. You know, it avoids the thing going left. You know, that kind of thing.
The one thing we have.
You know, Adam, you had mentioned. Oh, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, just one thing we have to continue to help our customers with is they're adapting as well, right? And there are various stages in their adaptation, and we have to meet them where they are and help them get to where they can be the most productive. Some of them are flawless, and some of them need more help than others. So how we manage that risk is an important thing for success of the project. It's not just MicroStrategies doing what we need to do. It's how we work with our customer to achieve their objective.
Yeah, because we're teaching them as well. We kicked off a project, in the, I guess, sort of the middle of this whole thing, a startup farm, a great bunch of people, right? And they're used to being all in the room, and we architect the process and like that. And all of a sudden, they're not only dealing with the fact that in a Zoom meeting, if you will, right? But now they're also with the fact that they're not in front of us. So they got the technology thing going on, just the cultural thing that have to change. And then, oh, by the way, conveying the message, So it's sort of, we become the educators as well as doing what it is we were hired to do. Educators in dealing with that technological situation, the cultural shift. Now I think some people are a little better, but let's keep in mind, some people during COVID didn't do any projects. So projects we have starting off now, right? Kickoffs, as John mentioned, they haven't done it. So that, you're in conversations with these people that are used to sitting in a conference room having this conversation, and now we're doing this. And we're doing whiteboards on our Surface, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Doing the diagrams and stuff.
Right.
So it's not just doing what we do, it's helping them along. And you can't blame them for being a little more stressed, because it's a change for them. People don't do these projects for the heck of it. So it's like, helping them get through that process is a big deal, So it adds a layer of, let's just say, excitement to the project. So,
Well, so to that point, I would imagine that those biweekly touch points and being able to see the progressions being made helps with some of that analysis paralysis that you mentioned before, because they're able to validate what the thought process is, and then be able to also course correct in the event that they've missed something.
Yeah, and course correct doesn't mean things went wrong. Course correct may mean, hey, 2 weeks ago when we did our conversation, I thought, meaning the client thought this, right? So Adam creates, or John or Eric or Jason, somebody creates a diagram of how it's going to work. They look at the diagram like, is that what I said? So, and that could be a course correction. Doesn't mean the world's coming to an end. We're not going to die a fiery death, but there's a course correction. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that needs to be constant. That communication needs to be constant. And, again, it's that structured approach that needs to happen to ensure that conversation. Course correction could be as simple as, again, a miscommute and a redirect, meaning redirect them, back to that, or redirect us, into the right situation. So,
Right. And it also could have been something potentially that they didn't think about, to your point, because it maybe didn't happen, and it gives them the opportunity to inject into the process what may have come up versus having to get it all right coming out of the gate.
So the thing that John and I always know is, and we tell users this in the beginning, and it's very relevant, and people listening got to know this. It's all good. If you haven't done a particular product, we're talking BPCS right now, we're talking documented content, but it's anything. When you embark on a new project where maybe you're not a genius with the technology, as you give requirements, as you go through the process, you have a certain level of intelligence on what that project's going to do and how it's going to work. As the project goes along, you, the user, become smarter. You learn more. You hear the facilitator. So all of a sudden, you're thinking slightly differently than you did before the project started. And that's expected, and that's okay. And that's what we try to tell them. So we may go 4 weeks into a project, and all of a sudden they think they had an epiphany, like, oh my God, why about a month ago? Because you know more now. You know more than you did a month ago. And good Lord, that's okay. That's all right, but that's going to happen. They're going to learn as you go through the project, and they're going to come back and say something. The key is say something. It's okay. Not to sound like see something, say something, but that's the reality. Be comfortable that you just learned because of the process, and now you want to change something. That's okay. And that's also the problem, because we're in structured conversations, sometimes it's tougher. In the water cooler conversations, it was easier for somebody to say, Adam, I don't know what you said in that last meeting. Can you tell me what you said? You see what I mean? So the water, it's either in a room full of people, it's a little dicier because there's a worry about, I don't want to look stupid. So that's the other thing, is trying to get them comfortable. This is our structured conversation. It's okay. You just learned. Tell us what you're thinking. You know what I'm saying? And that, again, back to that environmental piece in terms of we're not all together. We're in this remote situation. You know, and that's the big one, the learning as it goes on. I saw John smiling because I know he can think of 3 examples in previous projects we had.
Right. I was going to say, yeah,
I could
John, you
probably
were
guess.
smiling a lot.
Because of NBA.
Sharing was going through your mind as Adam was sharing.
Just a few. You know, the projects that are most successful is when the customers actually, and Adam's point spot on, when they actually realize that they're learning along that, and that our intention is to help them on a path of self-sufficiency over time, and that where they start that journey is okay wherever they are, and that's why if we've done this project, this type of project, multiple dozens of times, we should know more with them. And Adam and the team, Jason, do a great job in helping the customer understand what they think they ask for versus what they really need, right? And that's continuous, right?
Yeah, what's that phrase? I don't know I know the whole thing, but it was towards the night before Christmas thing, you know, a take on IT. But the ending phrase is just what I asked for, but not what I want.
Right.
You know, and that's it's not my phrase. I can take no credit for it, but that's pretty much it. And that's part of the education to get them through that. You know.
We on our kickoff meeting yesterday with the customer, we said we don't want a successful SOW project. We want a successful project, regardless of what the SOW says, right? So we'll make the adjustments and as needed along the way, because that's what really counts, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we talked a lot about risk and how we manage the conversations with respects to the delivery associated to risk, but then there's also the looming challenge on organizations' minds right now, which is, you know, cash flow and revenue. How does this approach help them manage that? You know, is there a way that it's helping them navigate? You know, they have to keep track of their cash flow, make sure that they're navigating it as best as possible. How does this process really help contribute and support that?
Well, I would say, you know, as we talked about much earlier in the chunking, in the smaller pieces, you know what I'm saying? The guys that do projects, they may have the budget X, the big budget or whatever size adjective you want to use. They've got budget X, but in reality, they're chopping that up because they've got to be cautious on that value. So that's why, you know, from our perspective, as you guys know on the call, you know, and those of you who may have worked with us, we're not looking for that big SOW, as John said, to get the thing rolling. You know, we're in this, you know, we've got clients we've had for 15, 20 years. Okay. No, it's not one project. You know, but we've had it over time, and that's relevant because we'll do a little, we'll go away, we'll do a little, or we just take that big project and chunk it up. And as they see the value, we do the next. Okay. So it's really a matter from a cash flow perspective, just they want to know where their money is being spent and they want to be comfortable where it's at. They don't want to sign up for something, sweat for a year. It's like, how about we chunk this thing up, you know? And that's where we work with them. So I would say there's been a lot more, if you will, smaller SOWs, not to be confused with smaller projects. Does that make sense? You know, so there's a lot, and we're okay with doing SOWs, you know, so meaning, you know, multiples, but I don't know if the projects have really gotten smaller more than the SOWs have gotten smaller. So we're successful, they're successful, they are okay with opening a little more of the purse string. Okay, you did that, awesome, next. I mean, if I look at this, we probably, I'm just thinking through my head, the last 4 or 5, you know, clients / projects. Yeah, over COVID, there's been a lot more, you know, call them additional SOWs, or I say change orders, but it's really adding more features. You know, it's like, let's do this. We're good. Now let's do this, you know, and that's okay. You know, it's also less stress on everybody. So the cash flow is chunking it up. So you're seeing more value. What you know, it's WYSIWYG. What you see, what you get. No, but what you're seeing in there is what you're going to get, and then you move to the next. And from a micro perspective, we've been doing this for a long time. So we're not let's get the big SOW and no, we're going to be around for a while, you know. So let's do the pieces, build the building blocks, and get it going. I think it's because I played with Lego as a kid. I'm used to a little building block. I don't know, but anyway, but it's definitely more the building block approach, you know, and like that's where they do it, you know. So there's not that big looming number, little numbers. So I don't know, John.
Yeah, I was gonna say from project delivery perspective, I mean, clearly you're very close to those costs and managing that. How does that? What have you seen, you know, in helping customers through that?
You know, whether it's defined phases or not, the number one reason I see where project costs go overrun is really scope creep, right? So if a customer understands there's going to be multiple phases, it's easier. If we help customers, go, like Adam said, go away, use the system a little bit, then once they've had some experience, then what they want to do differently may change than what they initially think they want to do differently. So some customers like to build a roadmap, multiple phases right out of the gate. Some like to do it over time on the project. So we track costs pretty well. We try to talk to the customers about when things change, even if it's scope change but not a financial change, we want to track that as an approved change. So over time we can say, okay, we originally started to do this. It evolved over time based upon the customer's priorities to look like this. And it typically happens, and as long as they understand it's going to happen or typically happen, that's fine. If it's a surprise to them, then they get worried, and then they start talking about overrun and out of control projects. It's a different thing. So there's a way of managing the increase in scope, and some customers understand this right out of the gate, and they'll carve a little portion for a contingency, and they have a strong governance model in place for that contingency that helps make sure it's metered out appropriately. It's not just used because there's more money needed for the project. It's delivering some specific value to the organization.
And one thing I'll say, if I may add to that, and Fred, one of our project managers, does a great job of this. What you'll hear from us, and it sounds weird, maybe the sales guys don't like it, but when a change order situation comes up, John and I, believe it or not, and you'll understand when I get to the end of this, we'll fight the change order in the sense that, can we get you live without the change order and then do the change order? You know what I'm saying? We're even more so now, because to John's point, as they learn, and I said earlier, when they learn they want to do more, that's lovely. We like more work. We're a consulting firm. But the reality is, can we get live, the value there, and then do the change order? Guys, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be around. So you'll hear that, and Fred, one of the PMs, does a great job of that. He'll push back like, yeah, we want to do the work. Sure, we're a consulting firm. But can we go live with what we've got and then do the change order after? Because sometimes that change order seems more valuable before the system goes live without using it. You know what I'm saying? Right. And where I don't want to be in a conversation is, geez, we did this change order, and the client says, yeah, I didn't really need that. And I'm like, oh, that's a fun conversation to have. So, so that's why it's like, we really want to get them live. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be around. All our COVID tests were negative. So it's like, we're going to be here. So it's like, let's get it live and then add the stuff. And that we find also helps mitigate the risk. You know what I'm saying? Because remember we talked about earlier, the education thing. They think they need that change order now because of where they think their world is at in their head about the solution. Right. As they use it, they may still do a change order, but maybe a different one. You know what I'm saying? One to be more valuable by virtue of what they've learned. And that's what John talked about, the cost monitoring. That's the other piece. Like, guys, can we go live? Let's go live. If we think go live, let's do it, and then do more work. And that's a big deal. That's a big, because we all know the quicker it goes live, the quicker the client sees value, everybody's happier. Up and down the line, everybody's happier. And that's why you got to go that direction. So,
And then they can see it. To your point, they can see how it operates in their environment, and then make a more informed decisions with respects to what really needs to change, if anything.
Yep.
As opposed to when you're in that development cycle. So you guys have had some great thoughts today. I really appreciate the conversation, and I think it's been really valuable for people to really understand what options they have when they're trying to deliver, especially in this uncertainty, as you said. Can you guys each share one thing that you would love our listeners to kind of take away from the conversation, really consider?
John, you go first.
One thing. When you're looking for external help, work with someone you trust and look at it as a relationship you're going to build over time. And that's how we continue to build. Adam mentioned we have customers that 15, 20 years. We didn't get that. We took that by taking a long-term approach and trying to do what's in the best interest of the customer.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I guess from my side, hey guys, when you start looking at your projects, don't let the unknown paralyze you. Okay? We all have the unknown. Okay? Obviously, I'd love you to work with us, but if you're not going to work with us, we'll still love you to some extent. But say to yourself, when the unknown starts to happen, don't let that stop you. Understand that you don't know everything, but you got to get to the finish line with that project. All right, that's the piece I would take or give off to people. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. Kelly, thank you very much for hosting us, and have a great Friday.
Thanks,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah, stay safe and healthy, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.